This time we'll resume the meeting of September 21st, 2015. Councilmember Gomez, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Della
Here.
Councilmember Clower.
Here.
Councilmember Gomez.
Here.
Councilmember Friend.
Present.
Councilmember Luna.
Present.
City Manager Avera.
Present.
City Attorney Diaz.
Assistant City Attorney Diaz, present.
Chief of Police Westrick.
Here. Okay. Verification of agenda posting.
Mr. Mayor, the agenda for the City Council of the City of Hollister regular meeting of September 21st, 2015 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on September 16th, 2015 at 11:58 a.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you very much. Is there anything to report out from closed session, City Attorney?
No action taken, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
Tonight we have two proclamations, one for Constitution Week in the City of Hollister and one for the Binational Health Week. Are those representatives here?
Lynetta Bishop from the Daughters of the American Revolution.
How are you? Whereas it is a privilege and duty of the American people to commemorate the 228th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and display. And now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd, 2015 as Constitution Week in the City of Hollister, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Say a few words.
I just have a couple of things to say in that about the Constitution. They started the Constitution Convention in May of the year, and then they signed it on the 17th, and only 11 of the states ratified it at that time. North Carolina ratified it in 1889, and Rhode Island, who was not represented at the convention, ratified it in 1790. Most of the people that signed the Constitution had bad things happen to them later on in life. Some of them died early, some of them were murdered. They took their life in their hands when they signed that Constitution in those 228 years ago. Thank you so much for the proclamation.
Thank you very much. For the Binational Health Week,
Cristina Torres and Angelica Rojas.
just you today. Hi. Whereas the Secretariat of Health and the Secretariat of Foreign Relations of Mexico, the Secretariats of Foreign Relations of El Salvador and Guatemala, the California Department of Health Services, the University of California, Health Initiative of Americas, and the United States-Mexico Border Health Commission have recognized the necessity of improving access to health care and public health information to the Latino community at the U.S.-Mexico border and throughout the state of California. And therefore, be it resolved, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, do hereby proclaim in honor of these efforts to improve public health for the Latino community, the dates of October 3rd through 18th, 2015 is declared Binational Health Week throughout the City of Hollister. Thank you very much.
Just wanted to say a few words. We have our event on October 14th. It will take place at San Benito Health Foundation, which is located at 351 Feliz Drive. It will be from 3 to 6 p.m., and we cordially invite you all to come and join us. Thank you. And I'll leave these with Tom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, if we can move to consent resolution. Like to, on A1, I want to make a few corrections on the minutes. For the record, I want to show A19 that I voted yes on that item, and A20 that I voted no on that item. Okay. Are there any items the council would like to pull?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull A5.
A5? Any other items? Any items from the public?
Mr. Mayor, a member of the public wants to speak on items A2, A3, A4, and A5, and A6.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved. Motion that we approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. 5-0 vote. Item A2. Item A2. Who had the question?
Mr. Keith Snow.
Is there a microphone for Mr. Snow?
Hello, Council. It's Keith, resident, city officer. I will ask some I wrote answers and back at the questions. The questions and back at the card. So do you want to read the back of the card? Or Anthony Mayor read? So everything in the back of the card.
The question on the back of the card is there overtime pay, or do they buy any vehicles or any other items?
Yes. So I went on in the overtime pay. So on the more registers, did we have the fund? And buy any vehicles and all that overtime pay? So like, and another thing too, I was asking too, and I've been noticing this too, and you mentioned too, Mayor, and the council, and the city manager too, want to watch me before I start coming. As you said, the treasurer's going to come to meetings about that. So I fear to make the efficient, more accurate, right, and the questions I'm asking, sure as the treasurer and with the city clerk, especially the mayor, right, should know those questions. And maybe my chance to mention there too. It's involving all mayors of the city. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item A3. Who is speaking on item A3?
Mr. Keith Snow.
I remember back at that comment card. Said, do you want to say what I wrote?
The back of the card says, what is the lawsuit about? What is the reason for the claim? Is it company or person? What is the city going to do to fix this?
Matter and make a solution. So what I mean by is, is there overtime paying that too? So you, Diaz can do that, partner Brad and Paul. To go to, he can ask the question, Mr. Diaz, the lawyer, do you guys pay money? Do you guys get paid for any lawsuits of the city? Mr. Diaz can ask a question. Does he have a microphone or he can talk?
Your question is, does somebody get paid about a lawsuit?
No, okay, like I said before, I'd look into this for a minute, right? Okay, for example, when someone sues the city, or ain't there a problem? Or is it business or a person? Because every time I come to meet, there's always an agenda, someone suing the city or business or anything. Ain't that a problem? I figured that should be a problem. And for example, give me Mr. Diaz as a lawyer there. Does he get paid to do any letters, or does he go to court? And court, like Superior Court, does he get paid for the city residents? Because that's residents in the city, like Brad Silverman and Paul. To me, they're looking at the question. And you see, have an officer, do you get paid extra for us taxpayers, right, to pay for the lawsuit?
Okay.
So-
Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Snow, so last meeting, we kind of went over this, and the process, if somebody submits a claim to the city,
You guys
is that
decline.
it's rejected and then moves forward to the insurance companies to settle the claim. The attorneys don't make more money by keeping this around. It goes to the insurance companies to settle.
I know, but for
Okay.
example, ain't that a problem?
Well, that's how the process works.
I know, but don't you want to change the policy or change the problem? I mean, for a fact, ain't that embarrassment for the city for there was a lawsuit? Because that's a lawsuit.
Imagine, I guess, if you think of an accident, if you're in an accident, your
So what?
insurance has to take care of it, so that's how the process works.
Okay,
Mr. Snow.
for example, then.
It's not about a
Yeah.
process to make
Okay,
money
okay.
for the attorneys.
Okay, for example, so that means.
Okay, we can't go back and forth, but that's the question. The
So
last
people
meeting we
falling
had,
in
we
that-
explained the same topic to you. Again, what happens is somebody files a claim, it comes through, it's rejected, goes through to the insurance companies for settlement. If the city's at fault, the insurance company will come back and work that out with the city.
Well, I know,
Okay.
I know a couple times.
you very
the
much,
cheese
Mr.
bill and
Snow.
all that too.
Thank
That
you.
should be a problem, so I mean, change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snow. Is there a motion?
Move to accept item A3.
Is there a second? Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, 5-0 vote. Item A4,
Item A4,
A4.
Mr. Mayor, oh, sorry. Mr. Keith Snow.
Okay, let's look upon the card.
The question on the back of the card is, what is this about? Please give detail.
Yes. So you guys should know, right? The council, right? You guys should know all about this. I made a lawyer right there too, the system. So you guys should know all about that.
yes, we do, Mr. Snow,
What
but
was
the director can answer your question if you have a specific question about it.
Once you guys tell me, I mean, like, I mean, you guys do anything? Or,
Mr. Snow, if we came to these meetings and had a conversation about every single item that's on here, this is why we do the work behind or before the meetings, to be prepared to ask questions of all these items. We'd be here till midnight every meeting. So it's for us to go and do our homework about these items. If you have a specific question that you want to know about on this item, please feel free to ask it.
I get, Mayor, not to be rude or nothing, right? That's why you got voted in as a mayor, and you, I guess,
Mr.
going
Snow,
as a
please,
councilman.
point of order. If you could please ask the question you have
Okay,
about the
well, I'm
specific
asking
item.
the one, you said the video game was last time, so he's exhausted for going to be in here so long, but that's why you got voted in. So I'm wondering, what would you do differently? What
Mr.
kind of
Snow, this is
change
not a,
would you
this is
make?
not a campaign forum.
I
If you have
know,
a
and
specific
that's
question about this
unethical.
item, please ask it. We're here to listen.
I know, but I'm wondering, once you guys, you the council.
Okay,
and
Mr. Snow,
it's on agenda.
we're going to have to move forward. Thank you
All right,
very
thanks.
much. Is there a motion on
So
item
moved.
A4? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item A5?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, A5 is actually disposal of, I have a listing of 10 pages, disposal of items from the police department. And I just want to know what is the exact process from beginning to end in disposing of radio equipment, video equipment, computers. Just want to know at the very end who signs off and where is it disposed?
So this resolution gives us permission to begin the process to either donate the equipment, to dispose the equipment, or auction the equipment off based on each item. Some items we can actually auction, send to auction to Property Bureau. Some items we can't auction at all, we have to dispose of. And some items we can actually donate. So it's a list that listing of all three of those. Actually, our Property Bureau, Gail, and who's supervised by Sergeant Wynn, would be the person that would go through this entire list. They've done a lot of work on this. Most of these items are 20 plus years old.
Right.
Actually, most of these items actually came from the previous police department, actually before this one was actually built. So they're actually more than 20 years old. So I can actually answer specific or try to, but most of it's quite old, obsolete equipment.
Okay, and just for the public information, so that they'll know that, you know, all this equipment will be disposed of, even if it's on the agenda. I mean, we have a listing of 10 pages. So my question and my concern would be at the final disposal, who signs off to make sure that they are disposed?
So at the time when it's determined to be either a donation, a destruction, or Property Bureau, each one of those three lists, each one of those will be signed off first by Sergeant Wynn and then by myself.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on that item?
Mr. Keith Snow.
Hey, Council, on that too, I was wondering, when you guys disposal, I mean, the points, right, like data or whatever, like investigation, criminal, whatever, then that's there. I mean, it is so really old. I know for a fact, when I lived for 5 years, almost 5 years, I only got spots in new equipment too. So the point is, right, the one thing that I am concerned, right, that I want to give, you guys should donate for kids the computers. So any laptops or any computers, you guys should donate for the kids, schools and all that. Or for that fortune that can't afford it, you know what I'm saying? So may do like a drawing. You know, when I said that, because the kids, parents can't afford nothing nowadays. Can't pay the water bill or nothing. It's the water bill. So for a fact is, but unfortunately, you guys should do that's my idea. And for another on the equipment, like on the list there, and then there's the list there, but there ain't no list of equipment you got there, like just says items. So like the points, right? And then, for example, too, when you guys sell it, so the auction it, right? Like I said before, and I wrote in my article, I know, and that's why I want to meet you, chief and the captain and all that too.
Mr. Snow, do you have a question on this item?
I'm just trying to speak your
We appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
No, but I'm not done answering. I'm asking
Well,
chief.
you did not have a question.
I'm an answer
Mr. Snow.
chief
We
here.
can't.
See,
Again,
argue. I mean, I want
Mr.
to
Snow,
argue.
we're more than open to hear questions, but statements.
All right, that was good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0 vote. A6. Who asked the question? A6?
Mr. Keith Snow.
A6 there, do read my answer?
The question on the back is this going to cost the city money? What does this council think about this?
See? But then the people. So the point is, right, what it costs in our protect sea fund? What does it cost when this not unethical or you can go on with that part? I mean, I'm a citizen and I care for the people and care for our taxpayers. So the point is, right? Does cost a city to do all this? Right? I mean, the point is, right? Do all the work and all.
Well, it's part of what we have to do, Mr. Snow.
No.
As a
If
city
it's that
council.
jurisdiction, no, it's not.
Is there a specific question?
Oh.
Mr. Mayor, can we have staff give an explanation?
That's
I
why
just
we
feel
have
this would
engineers
be-
and all that.
It'd be much easier if we had staff give an explanation.
Yes. That's why we get.
Well, thanks.
Thanks. Thank you.
I have a question. Do you know, it says that there's only two houses on this property.
Correct.
Are they looking to develop this? Is this why they're doing this?
The request that they made to the city was that they would like to have city water instead of a well system for health and safety reasons for water quality.
Just
So at
just
this
for
point,
the two houses that
For the two houses, correct.
Yeah, and generally in this particular area, I think there is high nitrates. I don't want to speak specifically to the health and safety issue of the well water or the groundwater there, but usually in this particular vicinity, it's high nitrates.
Okay.
So the request really is from the city council to just authorize staff to make the application on behalf of the owners to LAFCO. As far as costing the city money, it doesn't cost the city any money. There's an application fee that the city receives for processing, but there is no long-term cost associated with this.
Okay. Is there any other questions from council? Is there a motion?
So move. Second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I think Ray did. Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, 5-0 vote. Thank you very much. B, there is no business. There's been a request from the city manager to move item D before C.
D2 specifically.
D2?
Yes.
Be specific. Would that be all right with the council?
Yeah.
Okay, consensus. Okay, let's move item D2.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City staff, and members of the audience. My name is Catherine Liu, and I'm President and CEO of the Lou Edwards Group. Our organization specializes in working with public agencies and municipalities on long-term fiscal sustainability and public engagement projects. As a side note, our organization is considered the California leader in enacting sales tax revenue measures, having enacted 65 such measures. I was invited to come here tonight to share a little bit about our perspectives as the city and the city council consider whether to put forward a proposal in the upcoming future to ask the community to consider renewing your sales tax. So to start off with, there are a couple of general questions that most of my city councils and cities always ask me. Among the common questions are there any requirements as to election timing? From what I've gathered by studying the background on your city budget and your measures, your current sales tax revenue was structured as general purpose revenue, simple majority requirement. So as your city attorney has undoubtedly advised you, these types of measures are required by statute, with only one exception, to appear on the ballot during regularly scheduled municipal elections. Of course, the city council always has the option of converting the form of your measure to a special purpose, 2/3 requirement measure, and proceeding at another time. If you wish to maintain the current form of the measure, you are looking at November 2016 as your possible election timing. Another common question that my cities ask me is,
Okay,
well,
can I ask one question on that?
yes, Mayor.
Does the primary also qualify, or just the general election?
in the city of Hollister's case, only the general election, because it is the election timing where your municipal seats are also up.
Okay.
Okay. Another common question that many of my councils ask are, and I've certainly taken a look at the history of your past proposals to the public and the city's success in engaging the public on these issues, is it necessary at this point to do any further to engage our public on this issue? Or should we not merely place another possible extension on the ballot and see how the community would consider it? Obviously, doing so would be at some cost and expense to the city, and in this very dynamic environment, and an environment where there are a number of issues and agencies considering putting forward their proposals next year, we do recommend that it is prudent to query your community as a first step through a public opinion survey to determine whether they have any interest whatsoever in considering a proposal and under what parameters. Among the different areas that the city and city council might consider querying the public is, first of all, do their service priorities still align? Do their general fund service priorities still align with the city's priorities? Is there any interest in considering an extension? If so, what are the types of elements they would like to consider in such an extension, whether it's duration of the measure, tax increment, and others? And most specifically, pertaining to my remarks on the number of items that are anticipated for next year, do your constituents believe that other agencies and other proposals are of greater importance to yours? So these are just a number of the issues to be queried. We, of course, are very gratified that our other cities find these studies helpful, even if they choose, for whatever reason, not to place a measure on the ballot. It can be very helpful to take a fresh snapshot of your community for budget planning and service priority needs. I think that the proposal that the mayor and council may have reviewed indicates that our organization, should you choose to proceed, would be conducting an independent survey of up to 350 respondents in both English and Spanish with an interview questionnaire of about 20 minutes. Do bear in mind that anytime statewide surveys are done, usually a good sample size is 800. So as you may have found in the past, that is a sample size that's appropriate for your community. And with that, I will take any questions that the mayor and council may have.
Okay, is there any questions from council? Councilmember Luna? Councilmember Gomez?
Oh, thank you. Just really quick. So on this, so in years past, and please help me, Billy, if I don't recall correctly, but I've been through this once before, and I don't remember going through a public survey process in the past, and I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. It's always great to get a sample. We just went through it with the Council of Governments, and it really gives you a good understanding of not only obviously if the tax measure is going to pass, but more importantly what's important to the community and some of those responses. So that's great, and I think it could be potentially valuable. My question would be more directed to the assistant city attorney, and that would be in regards to as a council up here, what we're able to share with the public. Obviously, as council members and the mayor up here, we're going to have our own individual priorities, but when it's a general tax, are we, and is it recommended to even have those discussions in the public? If we could find ourselves in any kind of legal issue if we're stating our priorities more one way or another.
Yes, that's a very interesting question and a very important question, and I think the key component to that is advocacy. So what I would caution all of the council members not to engage in is any advocacy with regards to any type of measure of this nature. Now, you as an individual certainly have the right to opine, but not in your capacity as a joint and unified city council on any measure. So that's the big distinction. So what constitutes individual opinion as opposed to advocacy, formal advocacy promulgated by the city is going to be the question that ultimately would be determinative if there was any kind of violation. So that would be my caution, is that the city itself cannot take any advocacy for or against a measure.
And that's good, and thank you for clarifying that. Within a general, so if we're dealing with a specific special tax, it's easy for the community to formulate an opinion of it. Now, if we're using a general tax is going to go absolutely everywhere, as it should, and as it did in the past, and that's currently what we're doing. We're using this 1% sales tax revenue to address multiple issues throughout the city, and we hope for it to be well balanced. So my question, I guess, still remains, and that is, when it comes to specific expenditures, is where I'm kind of going with it. If even as individuals, not as a body, I have my priorities. The mayor has his priorities, and some may overlap, some may not. Councilmember Luna may have hers as well. So, any advice on that?
You're getting into a gray area there with regards to specific expenditures. So, for instance, if the expenditures form part of something that is already occurring with regards to the general services, just generally, the city certainly has the right to look at those and review those as it deems necessary, not necessarily in connection with any type of measure that the city is entertaining. Now, once you start to allocate specific amounts to any expenditures that are going to be covered purportedly under any tax measure in the future, then you're going to potentially, that could be construed as advocacy, potentially. Okay. So that's sort of the gray area that is a dangerous area to walk through, because it may be characterized that by doing so, the city is calling attention to the benefits of using those monies for specific purposes at a future date, and that can be construed as a form of advocacy to pass the measure.
Okay. Yeah, that's very, very helpful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And there's reasons why I'm mentioning that. Obviously we have, we're having multiple discussions on potential tax measures at the COG level, and then obviously the county is having their own discussions as well. So just to take a step back, I thought it would be important to hear that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
If I can also, before we continue, one of the other parts of the history lesson here is that our original 1% sales tax measure was actually in a state of an emergency. So that is one of the reasons why we're kind of off years, is how the 5-year sort of situation ended up working, because we were at a situation that was very detrimental, and if we weren't going in the right direction, and essential services were going to be compromised. So that's where that original measure came from.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Clower?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So the current 1% sales tax, if I remember right, I might be off by a little bit. Does it end in April of 2018?
That is
18.
correct.
March of 2018.
Okay, so
right?
April 1 of 2018.
Okay, so April 1st, 2018. And based off of what you said, we only have November of 2016 to do it as a general sales tax. And if we do it at any other time, it would become a special tax,
Yes.
which requires supermajority.
You would be required to proceed at the 2/3 requirement level. The only exception to the rule, as your city manager just pointed out, is if there was a unanimous declaration of fiscal emergency, which then would allow you the flexibility to proceed during a non-municipal election at the simple majority requirement level. And though we obviously have not had the privilege of representing the city previously, I believe that that is what your city manager was citing just a moment ago.
Okay, so what I'm taking away from the point is that we have one chance, really, if we want to do it as a general sales tax.
Correct.
Calendar-wise.
If you want to present a proposal to your electorate to consider. And I do want to clarify and emphasize again for members of the listening public and the mayor and council that as your consultants, of course, we have no formal opinion, nor do we have a viewpoint on whether you should place such a measure before your voters. Our goal is to provide you with a comprehensive snapshot for your constituents and for you to use a study robustly, whether it's to help set policy goals in your next budget discussion or whether it is to consider putting a measure on the ballot.
Okay. Councilmember Luna?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to hear you say about the survey being in English and in Spanish. Our Latino population in the city of Hollister and County San Benito is fairly high. We have a very good voting population. The surveys that are actually prepared for the public or the voting population, are they prepared by the agency, or does the city council or a committee of the city made up of, you know, our constituents put that survey together? Because what I wanted to say is that at times surveys are put out in Spanish and they can be more confusing to the Latino community by the wordage that is being used rather than explaining to them, you know, the reason for the survey.
Yes, thank you. It is vitally important to us all that this study be accessible and embrace the diversity in your community and reflect that diversity. We look forward, should the council choose to proceed, to working with your city manager and his staff on the best working model to develop the survey. We do typically work directly with the city manager and his team to, in a team format, develop the survey questions for a variety of purposes, evaluating revenue options simply being one of them. And I look forward to our discussions on how best we can construct the team to do that. It really is different depending on the culture of the city. The one thing I will mention, and I think that everyone will understand this, for the city's investment of its dollar, we very much want to be able to provide you with independent, unbiased information. So unfortunately, that precludes any lengthy discussion of the questions to be asked in a public format, because doing so would bias or skew the survey results.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend?
My question, I guess, is for the city attorney more than, and I agree with the survey issue. My question is, if the survey is done independently and it goes out, then we cannot have an opinion on the results? Is that what, would that consider being an advocate one way or the other, whether it's for or against?
No. I think the city council can certainly take a look at those results and evaluate them and formulate a decision as to how to proceed with regards to whether or not to make that proposal.
Okay, and the results are obviously going to be made public, correct?
Yes, we do look forward to transparently sharing the survey results, and in our experience, not only do our city staff and city councils find them very interesting, but the media and other members of the public, we typically do post the results on the website once finalized and following our briefing to the council.
Okay, thank you.
So a little more clarification for myself, expanding on what Councilmember Gomez and Clower were pointing out. If the conversation, we're having a conversation and we're saying we want to use a majority of the money to repair our roads, at that point, is that a special tax? Or is that a conversation we could still have, long as we're not being specific to the number?
Well, in response to your question, if I can respectfully answer by citing other best practices by our other communities, yes. Generally, those other communities have, in the context of their annual or 2-year budget adoption that the city and the council have established spending priorities of the general fund. And those are the codified priorities through your budget adoption of what the city council has in its wise judgment decided on any given year. In our experience, it is not ideal or appropriate in a general purpose measure to suggest any specificity in terms of the deployment of the dollars, as doing so would raise it to a 2/3 requirement level.
So the conversation was, we like to fix our roads and we like to fix these things. That falls back into that.
We'd like to hear more from our public as to what their priorities are for a variety of purposes, including how our general fund dollars should continue to be deployed in the future.
Okay. Now, if we became specific and said, we'd like to focus 40% of this money towards the roads, then at that point, we could actually put that in a June election if it became a special tax, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There is flexibility on election timing for any special purpose
Okay.
measure. Oh, and I might add, just to tie a bow around this conversation, that most of my city councils do make these decisions following the enactment of a successful revenue measure, should you choose to proceed. So the main cautionary note is not to do so in advance of a
Okay.
measure being
Okay.
enacted.
Understood. Very helpful. Thank you very much. I believe we have, do we have a speaker card from Mr. Snow? I see him raising his hand. Can you fill one out after your question, Mr. Snow? Thank you.
Well, I think it's now, right? I got a lot of feedback from people that want it. They want it all. For example, when we went on Measure T, right? 2008, right? Because it did a tax for roads and raised its head, right? Things you could spend. And then Measure E came aboard 2012. Then all of a sudden the bad was, let's get down to Doug Emerson, ex-Gansman, you guys created an oversight committee on the main part. And this is to fix roads and all. And for example, when it's so long as it run out, so now you guys are gonna cry wolf, spill milk. We need money to spend or whatever we're gonna do. For example, you guys are got that on 2012, and the guy that did this created all of it in his brains, right? It's called Robert Gavon. Is it right?
Please,
Finance.
Mr. Snow, please don't use other or individual names.
Okay, well, let's go and try and get that. So I'm just trying to speak on the feedback where I got from people. We don't want it. We're 1% housing tax, e-tax. People can't afford to pay the water bill. So for example, here guys, and know it's going to cost money. Because when they had in 2012, Rob Gavin did everything for the city. He did all the flyers, all the advertising.
Mr. Snow, again, without facts, please don't use names.
I go on. Okay. Honestly, he got fired anyway.
Yeah, no,
Gets
that's
fired
inappropriate,
anyway.
Mr. Snow. I'm
Okay,
going to stop you right there.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
We don't want it.
No, Mr. Snow, that was inappropriate. We're
sorry.
Continue. Thank you very much for coming out and clarifying all the information for us. All right. We're going to move back to item C1, public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker has limited to 3 minutes. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, sir. Mr. Marty Richmond. Thank you.
Good evening, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I'm sure that most of the council is aware, but the community may not be aware, that the county recently approved, the County Planning Commission recently approved a development agreement with, at San Juan Oaks with Del Webb for approximately 1,000 homes, a little over 1,000 units, and that those units will be serviced by the Hollister. The plan is to service them with the Hollister wastewater plant, and that the value of those connections will be about $9 million. The wastewater bill that you get, your sewer bill, basically, it has two components. One is the cost of the capital, $100 million approximately, plus funding, plus interest, whatever that was, that we built the plant. And the other one is the operational portion to run the plant every day. The plan was to have thousands of connections available when the plant opened up, and of course the plant opened up, the housing industry collapsed, and those were not available. But recently we've been selling a lot of those connections to using them internally and selling them where appropriate to LAFCO or the county, and using them there. So I would like to encourage you to ask the staff to update where we thought we were going to be, and obviously we took this big dip when the housing collapsed, and where we thought we were going to be in the future, so that we can see without getting surprised about where the, if we're ever going to see any significant reduction in the wastewater rates and any significant reduction in the cost, because that's basically the biggest bill. It's bigger than the water bill, it's bigger than the trash bill, and that is the one that people have been, the good people of this city have been sitting on top of, 86 to 90 bucks a month every single month, and on the idea that we would use it up. Now we've got to find out, obviously the world has changed, things have moved, connections came later rather than earlier, they came in different bunches, but we've got to get some prediction about where we're going to be. Now that prediction may show that without these connections we would have had an enormous increase. That prediction may show we are going to stay steady. That prediction may show we're going to get a decrease. I don't know what it is. It would be really good, I believe, for the public to understand which part of the sewer bill is paid by what, and how these connections help reduce their costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Heidi McDonald.
Good evening, Mayor Velasquez and council members. My name is Heidi McDonald, and I'm an employee in the Public Works Department. Tonight, SEIU members would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for meeting individually with employees and listening to our members at City Council meetings regarding our contributions to the city and the concerns regarding our contract negotiations. Our members thank you for approving a fair contract. SEIU members will continue to work together with the city in providing services to our citizens and making Hollister a beautiful and desirable place to live and work. As a team, together, everyone achieves more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Keith Snow.
Hi, Council. Let's get back lower water prices. I haven't seen no reduce. I seen like a lot. I wanted talking. And then you guys want to again, let's finish where we get at. How you guys have a city council future Ogg, city, Ogg, county, right? And how you guys want to find a ballot to raise the housing tax or 1% tax. But all I get, first guys worried about spending the money that you guys already have.
Mr. Snow, that is an item on the agenda, so we cannot have the conversation.
Okay, why did not, it's on that agenda. I want to talk again, but point is right. How, like I went to our city clerk, right? I talked to him last week. How we should work more to be self-efficient, our city. But we try to compromise. And what compromises, let people be involved in the city. I think guys don't like me, because people don't like smart people with good ideas. I do think it's just because what we had when I discussed, you guys have all the tools. I think everyone read my paper. I'm not about money. I'm for the people, for our kids, for our future.
Mr. Snow, you cannot campaign within the
I'm
chambers.
not campaigning. I'm
Thank
saying,
you.
I'm not campaigning. And you can't say unethical because I'm a citizen. And he asked me, my run for mayor. It's at my prescription. You guys worried about that? No, the things got fixed. But how dirty politics is. You know what it is when we talk on the phone. But between you and whoever did this to me. But I'm saying I'm worried about this or the past. I'm worried about the future. And I'm worried about the goal of the city. I'm worried about how we can
Mr.
fix
Snow,
things.
it's inappropriate and it's illegal to be campaigning within the council chambers. We've talked about this in the past.
Why do I talk about you saying chambers when I did my website on my own?
I'm sorry, Mr. Snow, I'm going to have to cut you off right there. Again, it's illegal to be doing this.
How's that when you guys pay
Thank
50?
you very much, Mr. Snow. Do you have another speaker card?
Mary Gilbert.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Mary Gilbert, Executive Director for the Council of Governments and Local Transportation Authority. And I just wanted to announce on behalf of the Local Transportation Authority that County Express, our bus service here in town, is going to be offering a free shuttle between Hollister and the San Benito County Fairgrounds for the entire duration of the fair next week. So we just wanted to make sure the community knew that and you were informed.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Marvin Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Some of you may have heard this before, but we've got a new group of students here. It was last September was the 200th anniversary of the writing of the poem that ended up as the Star-Spangled Banner. Francis Scott Key was on board a ship out in Baltimore Harbor when the British bombarded Fort McHenry for 25 hours. Heavy bombardment for 25 hours. All they had to do was take the flag down and quit. And they kept the flag up. That was a massive flag. That flag was 30 feet wide. Its building's what, 12, 14 feet high? Star-Spangled Banner was 30 feet wide, stars 2 feet across, stripes 2 feet across. Math question. If that flag was 30 feet wide and each stripe was 2 feet, how many stripes were there? 15. 15. When Vermont was added to the Union, they put on the 14th star, 14th stripe. Kentucky was added, they added the 15th star, 15th stripe. Then it got awkward, they went back to 13. But that's just trivial information that you'll probably never need, but it is interesting. The Star-Spangled Banner had 15 stars, 15 stripes. I've got a whole minute left. What else can I do? Ms. Bishop mentioned the Constitution Week. It was interesting that several of at least two of the southern landowners, plantation owners that had slaves, were abolitionists. Actually were. They owned slaves, but they were abolitionists.
Dr. Jones, can you focus your comments towards the
and Mr. Mayor, were you aware that the sorry about it, Mr. Mayor.
Definitely don't want a history test tonight.
I'll be pretty quick. And there were some New England shipbuilders that wanted to keep the institution going because they did commerce there. Constitution contains a clause in there that there be no more importation of slaves in 20 years. How about that? Hopefully the institution would die of its own natural origin. Unfortunately, it did not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
There are no more speakers, Mr.
No
Mayor.
other speakers. All right. At this time, it's getting close to 7:30. We have many students here in the audience that have an hour to be with us, so we're going to take a 5-minute break so they can take their papers up here and get them signed off.
I just have a question. I've asked for an overview of that striping for about a month now, and I still haven't.
You know, I think we sent the plan to the printer. On our website, under the engineering department, on the homepage of the engineering department, there's two links to an electronic version of the plan itself. We actually also sent staff down to get two nice, another copy of a hard copy for you folks to take around with you when you're talking to constituents and stuff, because I know that not everybody's got a tablet or a laptop laying around. So they were supposed to be ready today. I will check and make sure that you have that tomorrow. If not, I'll make sure we'll get it to you tomorrow. So.
Thank you.
And on that, can we make sure we have the HDA here and invite some of the business owners along San Benito Street too?
Oh, yes, the HDA would probably going to be here because we also, there's a small little discussion on the fees that would be associated for closing San Benito Street, or the cost that when we close for farmers market and parades and whatnot. So there's a small item on there as it relates to that as well. So.
Okay.
Since we've taken care of item D2, item D3, I would like to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes and let the council know sort of the plan. It's kind of interesting that Marty brought up the sewer treatment plant and how it relates to development and growth. Brett Miller and myself went to our underwriters about 2 weeks ago to get an update on how we were going to proceed with the refunding of the sewer bonds. What you'll notice in this first slide here, these are really what was done is there's 2 scenarios that were provided on this particular page about refunding using cash as a surety, and you'll notice that scenario B also has a taxable portion of the bonds. The taxable portion of the bonds you'll see is has a red figure in there. It's a little bit inefficient right now to do that. I mean, this is as if we were going to go to market tomorrow and try to refund not only our original par amount but also the taxable portion. If we go to the next page, it's probably the page that this is what the staff's recommendation is going to be. Can we go one more?
Yeah, can you blow that up because it's
Okay.
hard.
Oh, sure. I don't know. Can Dave blow that up, or Tom, or somebody?
There you go.
Okay. So the light blue column is what staff is going to be recommending that we move forward with this. There's a couple of things that is important as it relates to this. One is we are in September. The preliminary official statement is essentially 99% drafted at this point. We can be ready to go almost at any time. However, what we're suggesting is that we go and do a full refunding of both 2006, 2007 series. We believe that we can get insurance, which would eliminate the need for a cash deposit with our fiscal agent. So it drops the amount, our overall par amount. Interest rates were one of the things that we were sort of hedging. On Friday, we expected to see maybe a 25 basis point jump by the feds. That did not occur, right? That didn't occur?
Did not occur.
That did not occur, okay. So what essentially happens at this point is that we're looking pretty good. We have a 90-day callable period before June 30th of 2016, which means we can go to market essentially on March 1st. We will be prepared with all resolutions to hit the market, and we'll get pricing probably around the end of January. I think the benefit, the line that most of the folks want to see here is that assuming that everything stays more or less the same in the world between now and, say, January 29th, 3 months away, we would be saving just a little bit over $1 million in our annual debt service as it relates to the current bond situation, which is, I think, obviously, it's fairly significant at this point. Marty asked a couple of questions about the newer development and how it relates. We have overhead costs on an annual basis, not only in the debt service, but just running the plant. We also have capital equipment needs. One of the things that we have recognized is that the plant is about 7, 8 years old right now. Some of the membrane trains are starting to become dilapidated. We have figures that will be coming to the council hopefully shortly and getting authorization to buy 2 more trains, or replace 2 trains, I should say. The replacement of the trains does a couple of things for us. The newer trains, or the newer models of the membranes, are actually about 60% more efficient than the ones that are actually installed. So we'll be gaining capacity in our plant just by replacing the membranes. Right now, our plant, or as originally designed, was at 4.5 million gallons per day, with the ability to double and then double again. Our average daily flows, I don't know if Dave is here and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're right around 2.3 million gallons. So essentially what we're saying is that we can pretty much double the size of the city of Hollister over the next couple of years, if that would. It's not likely, or it's not even reasonable to think that that would ever happen. But capacity is there. Current ratepayers are paying about 45% of the overall cost of the plant, with new development taking up about 55%. That was kind of sort of the original sort of split between new development, the capacity that was built into the plant for new development, versus the capacity that was required to have for existing users. So if there's any questions, staff is recommending this path. Again, pricing like around January 29th. Go to sale March 1st, and we will no longer have 2 series of bonds. We will have 1 series. We hope to get insurance or a surety at a triple B plus rating, which we believe that we can get just based on the fact that we have we maintain good standing with our fiscal agent, with the bondholders, and we do see growth at this point. So.
Okay. Is there questions from council? So we've been talking about this for, I think, over a year now. And I know it was the callable period was the issue, but by the time December rolls around, that will be going up by about, well, I don't know, 0.25 or higher. What do those numbers look like if that happens compared to, can we call it, can we do it now? They're going to be going up.
Okay, if it only goes up, if it goes up more than 0.5% is the only time it doesn't make sense to wait. I was messing around with some numbers with the gentleman that was up there, and it's not likely. That is an unlikely scenario. So I think that's what everybody's sort of recommending at this point, and kind of the way we're going down this path is that not going and having a taxable portion of the bond, getting rid of that inefficiency there, keeping it consistent as a tax exempt one series bond. It's much simpler and probably much more advantageous overall to the city of Hollister.
And that can only happen start in December, or is that what?
No, the only time we're allowed to call 90 days prior to June 30th. So we would be ready to go March 1st.
So you're saying if it goes up 0.5% by March 1st, then it's...
Yeah, we're never going to be in a situation, I shouldn't have said never. We're very unlikely to be in a situation where it becomes a non-cost savings issue.
Right.
The difference between $800,000 and $1 million is whether or not we see a 25% or an increase in basis points of 25 points. It goes to about $500,000 if interest rate goes up 50 basis points, which is not likely.
But the 0.25 is likely. So
and it probably is. So it's probably, if in fact the feds increase the rates, you're probably looking at a savings of around, I think it was $879,000, if I recall correctly, instead of the $1 million.
So I kind of like the 1 million number.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be better if that's the case to go ahead and do this?
You can't
now,
do it.
You can't do it now.
You can't do it now.
You need the time.
Yeah, you need the time. And that's kind of
90 days.
Yeah, 90 days. Like I said, we will price it in January 29th. Everybody will have a very good idea about what the ultimate cost savings will be, and we'll be ready to sell on March 1st. That's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add, Brett?
Any other?
I'm not the financial guru.
No, Billy did it correct. Yeah, it was, they ran the numbers, and it was half a basis point. It was roughly the same as what we would get if we went right now.
Okay.
Yeah, the taxable part, because investors have to pay a tax on it, they require more interest. So it automatically makes it, it costs us more if we do owe the taxable way. We would save if we did it right now, but we feel that waiting, the potential savings definitely outweighs the interest rate risk that we would by waiting.
That's at 0.25 or 0.5?
0.5 was what they ran as a test.
That's it. Okay.
And it was still feasible at that time.
Okay. All right.
Plus, that also gives us time that if we do have some more connections, like Marty said, that we could buy down even more bonds, which would save even more interest.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that should be, thank you for saying that, is this is just a refi, these numbers that you see up here. I need to be clear that the city does have money in reserves in the in Fund 660 and 661. We need to make sure that we take care of our capital needs if that's what we need to do, and then we can pay down any additional, say, principal. We'll call it principal for lack of a better term, and that which may also help reduce the overall or raise the annual savings of debt service quite a bit. So, and it can be as little as $500,000, or it could be as much as $5 million.
Right. And nobody likes hearing this, but the rates were planned to be about $120 a month. We have been able to keep them down at the current rate for the last 4 years. So in a roundabout way, we have saved or have lowered the rates.
Okay. Are there any speaker cards? No. Okay. Mr. Richmond and Mr. Snow.
I did not know it was coming, but I do want to make a very, very short statement.
Every once in a while, we have a surprise for you.
Yes, I did not know it was coming when I made my little speech. But I do want to say that Bill did give me $10 to bring that up.
Mr. Snow, you had a question? Okay, is the microphone there for Mr. Snow?
Chief left.
Tracy Gray.
I mentioned to city manager, I mentioned to Brett, and I mentioned to there's a company called Moody's. They'll say $2-3 million a year, bonds and training and everything to improve our city. Always they need to switch bands and all. But what I mean by is, on top I was supposed to make me and try and get me with Mike, the management over there, and talk Dave about the water treatment plant. How as many things like water and all that too, and stuff like that. But so I was wondering, like, is you when you guys do this, are you guys lower the water rates for the customers next year when you do that?
This is for sewer bonds, not the water, and the goal is to pay down debt so eventually we can lower the rates on the sewer fees. Okay? All right, thank you very much. We'll move forward to item E1, public hearing. At this point, I'm going to recuse myself, and I believe Councilmember Clower is also going to recuse himself. I'll pass the to Vice Mayor.
Abraham, do we have a report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council. We do have a report for this item. A little bit of background. At its regular meeting of August 27th, 2015, just last couple of weeks ago, City of Hollister Planning Commission denied approval of a conditional use permit for a planned unit development with a tentative map to subdivide approximately 4.56 acres of land into 47 lots, consisting of 43 lots for single-family detached units and 4 non-buildable parcels for roads and open space. As you can see up in the screen. The Planning Commission also denied approval to an addendum that was prepared for the mitigated negative declaration that was approved in December of 2013 for the Rakovich 81 single-family unit project. And that map is in the previous slide. We have it up there. The property is zoned R1 LPZ for low-density residential zoning with the performance overlay zone, and it's located east of San Benito Street and north of Southside Road. A request to appeal the action of the Planning Commission was submitted on August 28th, 2015 by the applicant, BMC Promise Way. The City Council at its September 8th meeting set an appeal hearing for this item for the regular City Council meeting of today, September 21st. Staff has reviewed the Planning Commission appeal action form submitted by the appellant. The appellant's reasons for the appeal are that the project conforms to the applicable zoning district of R1, low-density residential, also the general plan and the housing element standards. That the applicant also states, or the appellant also states, that the Saddlebrook project will provide market rate affordable ownership opportunities due to the design of smaller homes and lots. Not necessarily for affordable home restrictions, but by the design of the smaller lots. The Planning Commission indicated that the property had received allocations for 81 single-family homes and for 100 affordable multi-family residential units by the City Council previously. The Planning Commission, at its December 19th, 2013 meeting, approved a tentative map to subdivide 22.25 acres, which is the Rakovich property, into single-family residential lots, with the remainder parcel designated and analyzed per CEQA standards for the future 100 affordable multi-family residential units. The applicant obtained a final map approval and building permits from the City of Hollister and is currently making improvements to the site and building the single-family homes. And you can tell currently they are building the 81 single-family homes. At its regular meeting of February 26, 2015, the Planning Commission did a preliminary review of the Saddlebrook proposal to modify the 100 affordable multifamily residential units anticipated for this parcel. The determination made by the Planning Commission on that day was not in support of this change. The City Council and Planning Commission held a special joint meeting on April 13th, 2015, and up on the screen we have a little bit of a background with all the points and bullet points. And the concerns expressed at the joint meeting was the need for a variety of housing types, which included affordable housing, but also small lot development. Following the joint meeting, the applicant desired to pursue the request for a tentative map approval of 43 small lots for residential development and made a formal submittal, and as stated earlier, was denied by the Planning Commission at its August 27, 2015 meeting, since the proposal was not one of 100 affordable multi-residential units as allocated previously by the City Council. The applicant is therefore seeking an appeal to the decision of the Planning Commission.
As mentioned, the zoning for the property is R1 LPZ, Low Density Residential Performance Overlay Zone. Although the Saddlebrook subdivision proposes smaller lot sizes than the city's standard 5,500 square foot minimum lot size for single-family homes, it conforms to the Low Density Residential Performance Overlay zoning standards of the Hollister Municipal Code. The intent of the Residential Performance Overlay Zone is to foster development that meets the range of densities for the general plan land use designations with a variety of lot sizes and choices for housing types. The Saddlebrook subdivision also conforms to the City of Hollister general plan designation of low-density residential, which allows up to 8 dwelling units per acre, because although the gross density of the Saddlebrook subdivision proposes 11 dwelling units per acre, the overall 22.25 acre project site would have a density of 5.57 dwelling units per acre. The 2009 housing element of the general plan has anticipated 101 housing units on the project site based on the city's general plan designation of low-density residential. The Saddlebrook subdivision proposes 43 single-family detached units on small lots and as part of an already approved 81 single-family residential subdivision for a total of 124 residential units. Therefore, the Saddlebrook subdivision would comply with the housing element on the number of housing units anticipated for the site. Although the Saddlebrook subdivision meets and exceeds the number of housing units anticipated for the site, it does not take away from the potential for very much needed multifamily affordable housing in the city of Hollister, since the property has been analyzed per CEQA standards for the future potential development of 100 affordable multifamily residential units. However, the city of Hollister residential projects list identifies 4 multifamily planning commission approved projects with a total of 219 multifamily residential units. There is no application for the development of 100 affordable multifamily units for the subject property. The applicant has expressed the desire to build the Saddlebrook subdivision in the near future if it's approved. With this, staff recommends that the City Council of the City of Hollister approve the following motion. Adopt resolution number 2015-189, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister granting the appeal of the applicant, BMC Promise Way, LLC. Adopt resolution number 2015-190, a resolution granting approval of the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration. Adopt resolution number 2015-191, a resolution granting approval of conditional use permit for a plan unit development application 2015-1, and adopt resolution 2015-192, a resolution granting approval of tentative map application number 2015-1, subject to the findings and conditions contained in the draft resolution. Any questions for staff?
Any question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a couple of questions. So I'm assuming this is pretty similar to what we have going on in Holland Circle. Abraham, is that pretty accurate? Same.
That's a very accurate statement.
And then I think we have another one. I have another one in my district. I think it's off of Bella Vista, and I forget what that development is called, but I think it's a gated community, and seems to be a pretty safe community. I don't hear a lot from the constituents either. They don't have a lot of issues, or they don't like me, but I don't hear a lot from those folks. So in terms of affordable housing, what after the dissolvement of the redevelopment agency, what funding mechanism do we currently have for municipal subsidies for affordable housing?
Currently, Councilman Gomez, and you'll see it in the report, we have one fund that's kind of left over. It's the Affordable Housing Fund that we use to monitor, and we have requirements that have been set forth by the state to spend X amount of dollars on various projects. We have been working with CHISPA and CSDC on some different ideas. Line Street project comes to mind. Other than that, you'll have like some home program funds, or you'll have some CDBG money, but those are very small amounts of money in the grand scheme of things. Tax credits in the state of California have become very, very competitive. Sometimes we do well, sometimes we don't do well, and that's usually based on really kind of where the project actually is located, whether it's close to shopping, close to hospitals, close to services, close to the buses. So there's a lot of those types of things that are used to evaluate whether or not a 4% tax credit application or a 9% tax credit application. So there's very, very limited affordable housing funds at this point.
So compared to the redevelopment days when we had funding available, the 20% set aside that we had. I guess if you could put it in perspective, where are we compared to those times?
Our good years with tax increment with the 20% set aside, or 20% of gross increment, was probably right around $3.8 to $4 million annually. Yeah.
Okay. And that's probably around the time that resolution was adopted back in 2009, right? When that resolution was adopted in 2009, they were probably looking at RDA before Governor Brown even started those discussions about the dissolvement. They were probably counting, I'm assuming I guess this is more of a statement, I don't expect you to answer that. So from my perspective, that action was taken with that thought in mind of having that set aside available for subsidies of affordable housing.
I think that's reasonable.
So the and this is kind of hard to project, obviously, depending on the market, but the average home in the city of Hollister is, I'm assuming, 475 or 500. I don't know. I guess this is when Carson would come in handy.
I Zillowed my house, don't ask me why, the other day, and I have what I would consider a pretty typical house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house located behind Rite Aid, and I think it came in at 465.
Okay, so I understand these are not affordable. These are probably not even classified below market rate. But from my perspective, they seem to be, at least from my perspective. So these homes are going to be coming in probably around the 350 range, I'm thinking. Is that accurate? Okay. So just off the top of my head, that sounds about 25% below the average home in Hollister. Is that safe to say?
Sounds reasonable.
Sounds affordable. Sounds affordable.
More affordable.
More affordable. Thank you. Sounds more affordable. So though I do have, obviously, well, first, I have to say, I grew up in an affordable housing community. I grew up on the corner of Buena Vista and Gonzales, and we grew up in subsidized housing, and that was my parents' first and only home. And I'm a big, and will continue to be a big advocate for affordable housing, stabilizing neighborhoods and making sure that a family finds a home has a residual impact on a family that is unbelievable. And I was the benefit of it. My parents owned the home, yet I benefited from my parents' equity in this affordable housing unit. So I don't think anybody's trying to argue whether affordable housing is good or not. I think what we're trying to figure out here is what's best for this site. There's a couple of points that have been made in years past by Marty Richmond. I don't know where Marty is now, but Marty made a good point, and I support the point of having a wide spectrum of housing throughout the community, and I think that's important. Yes. And to an extent, I believe that's kind of where the Planning Commission maybe made their decision. Is, hey, we're looking at not just bombarding the west side with affordable housing, which it happens. It's happened throughout the years. So I think that is a possibility. Now, if we don't support the appeal, the Planning Commission's decision, more than likely, I'm assuming the property would stay vacant until maybe at some point there's future funding for affordable housing. Is that safe to say? It would probably stay vacant? Yeah. So my concern is, making sure that we have a wide spectrum of affordable, not, technically the term affordable housing, but affordable units throughout the city of Hollister. I think that is needed. A lot of our community, obviously I'm one of them, I commute outside of the city for work. Now, not everybody does, and I commute outside of the city for work because salaries are enticing and it's not that too shabby of a drive. Now, others don't want to do that, and they probably have a different income than those that commute. So I think this could potentially be an opportunity for those that work here locally to be able to purchase locally and not become commuters, not become citizens of Hollister that live in Los Baños or Dos Palos or Chowchilla or wherever else in the valley. So at least from my perspective now, and looking at this over the course of months now, I sympathize with the Planning Commission's decision. I think they had the right desire and intentions. Now, the problem for me comes in, and I'm still willing to listen to the opposing views here, but where I come in is, okay, if we do designate it as and keep it as affordable housing, with crossing our fingers that, hey, maybe someday we're going to find federal, state, or municipal subsidies to build affordable housing again. I don't see that happening right now. I don't see the state stepping up, making that happen. They took away the money from us, yet obviously they're not they don't have any idea on how they're going to, and the state's going to eventually have to deal with it as well. But so, you know, from my perspective now, I see this as potentially middle ground between affordable housing and market rate housing. I see this as somewhere in between, trying to find common ground, at least until we find a mechanism for affordable housing. So those are my questions, and that's my statement. Thank you.
I also agree with Victor that obviously we have 300 and some houses that are already designated as low income, low affordable housing. And we obviously have another 1,000 units that are market rate, which are, if you could find a house for $450, $475 today, it would sell tomorrow, because they're in the 500s and further. And I think we're missing a whole group of people, like you say, that live and work here in the town. I think of a teacher or a fireman or a policeman who wants a new house but can't afford a $500,000 house. This could be an in-betweener where they don't have to buy, and they wouldn't qualify for the low-income housing because they make just above that threshold there that requires them to get into the market rate housing. And I think this is a gap filler that is necessary also. I think it's in a good spot to do that. I think putting 100, for the lack of a better term, 100 apartments in that same complex is going to create issues with traffic because of the high school and whatnot. I think this is more of a, like you say, a gated community that people will take pride in. I just think this is a gap that we feel. I understand, and I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and they're absolutely correct that we need to look at spreading the affordable houses throughout the city. We can't hold that as a finding right now, but we should put that somewhere and figure out how to do that, and I don't know how to do that yet. Somebody smarter than me is going to have to figure that out. But I think currently, I would hate to see that lot go unbuilt waiting for that funding that we all know is not going to happen and come up. So, Vicki, you got?
Thank you. You know, I have to echo Councilman Gomez's commentary. He was lucky he had a house on the west side. You know, I was raised around labor camps in this community. And we're lucky to have, you know, been able to purchase a home and grow up in this community, in a safe community, attend our local schools, support our local public schools. As always, Abraham, I am always looking for parts. And I see the area where a proposed park is there, and I totally support any development that is going to bring in a park for our community and the residents of the development. Can you tell us anything about the corner park other than, and probably having other speakers speak on that as well? I want to know more about that. And also, you know, when we speak about our medical staff that works here locally in our hospitals, our clinics, that cannot afford a home, that live out of the area, and educators. But there's no guarantee that also that, you know, they're going to be the ones to get those homes. We can encourage that, yeah. But, you know, it's just not a given. So I support the idea, you know, of the project, but I still want to know for sure what are we going to do about that corner area and to make sure that we have a park.
Absolutely, Councilmember Luna. Your statements are well taken and really important. I know prior to the April joint City Council Planning Commission Housing meeting that we had, the previous joint City Council Planning Commission meeting was about code enforcement and was about parks. And, you know, I think staff and the Planning Commission really heard it loud and clear and is also in support of open space. The applicant is here as well to talk a little bit about the open space that's going to be proposed, but the area is proposing to have more like a linear greenway connection towards San Benito Street, but to connect to the development right to the south of that. That's Award Homes. They also got approved for a tentative map approval for their project to have an area for open space, for parks. For serviceable open space, they're gonna have like a little area for like open frisbee, and also like a little tot lot as well. So that's gonna be the hope to connect, to make some type of greenway connection from this development straight to the south, and have that you know, connect for that open space area to make sure that there is some open space in walkable distance for that area. I know that the Parks and Recreation master plan indicate that there should be certain amount of open space, no longer than a certain amount of distance. But based on previous meetings with the City Council and Planning Commission, there is more of a support for parks or open space in a development, especially of this size. And so at this point, the request would be to show more of that linear connection from this development to the project adjacent to the south, where there has been a park already approved there for that development.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing at 8:08. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, sir. Marie Hoffman.
Good evening. My name is Marie Rakovich Hoffman. First of all, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm here tonight representing the entire Rakovich family. My mom, dad, siblings, my daughter, my husband, and my brother-in-laws are all here, 3 generations of Rakovich family. We are the property owners at the proposed project site, Saddlebrook. We are not developers in any way, shape, or form. We never have been. We are farmers by trade. We have been farming in San Benito County since the 50s. The property in question has been in our family for approximately 30 years. When we purchased the property, we had hoped to farm it. Unfortunately, a combination of issues including acquisition of water, proximity to the Severance and Track neighborhood housing, running of heavy farming equipment in the area, and et cetera, have kept us from planting and maintaining an orchard at this location that would have been a viable addition to our farming operation. Over the years, we have been paying outrageous property taxes on this piece of land, but have not reaped any income on the property in a number of years. Nevertheless, when we decided to sell the land several years ago, we wanted to make sure we sold the property to a responsible developer and that the projects that they would build would be something that our family and the community would be proud of. We are firm believers in individual property rights, and the last thing that we would want to do would be to create an environment that people living in the neighboring communities in the Eastview and Severance and Tracks and the new development that just went in and is being built right now would not be happy with. Many of these people in these communities, in the neighborhoods, are our family friends and have been for years. We also did not want to see a project built on our land that would negatively affect the property values for our neighbors. We as a family and as responsible property owners truly care about the kind of project that goes in here. My dad, who's here tonight, has never done anything in his life that he wasn't proud of, and that includes taking pristine care of our land. This is evident if you drive by our orchards on Highway 25. They are a beautiful gateway to the city of Hollister. We believe that the Saddlebrook development is the perfect project for San Benito County and for this site. It promises to be a lower cost alternative for the already approved high cost housing currently in this county. And I want to emphasize that this project, as it has been proposed, conforms to the general plan, zoning, and housing element requirements that you have set. There is a great need for a project like this in San Benito County. It promises to be an excellent first-time home buyer option for those residents that just can't afford a larger single-family home. As I mentioned before, our land has been for sale for quite some time, approximately 15 years. We've been trying to sell it. Given the size, may I continue?
Sure.
Given the size of the property, just about 4 acres, Benchmark Communities and the Saddlebrook project is the best project option for this site. If this project is not approved, our family would be hard-pressed to find another buyer to sell our property to for any use at market value. And I mentioned before individual property rights. We do have the right to sell our property as long as we conform to all the rules and requirements that you have established, and we've done that. We feel we've done that. We clearly understand that you all have a very, very difficult job representing the opinions of various groups, individuals, and other political entities, and we know that you can't please everyone in this room tonight. But please remember that your decision tonight may also severely impact and limit our ability to execute our rights as property owners and to provide this community with a project that we can all be proud of. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other speaker cards?
James Fletcher.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you very much, Marie. That was very nicely said, and we will take the responsibility and trust you put in us to heart. My name is Jim Fletcher. I am the Division President for Benchmark Communities here in the Bay Area, and me and my team have been involved in this project for quite some time, since its inception. We've also brought the project civil engineer here, who has been very, very helpful in working around the constraints of the site and trying our very best to come up with a land plan and a product type that we feel will meet the marketplace in a very, very unique and interesting way. I'm proud of what we've come up with here because as we have been merchandising the Homestead property, sometimes called the Rakovich 1 property, we get people coming through our doors all the time that love the product, love the idea of owning their own single-family detached home, and they just can't afford, $460,000 to $550,000 where we're priced, and we have to send them away. This is an opportunity, I think, to really, I think you've hit the nail right on the head, because we're going to be able to merchandise this at a price point that I think will be accessible by a large percentage of your citizens. And it's not attached housing, it's not townhome living, it's true single-family detached housing at a price that we can make a profit, but we can also deliver a very high-quality product, and I know will make a lot of people really happy. So I understand the concerns about affordable housing. We work with affordable housing developers and other projects. So I'm very, very aware of the challenge of lining up the financing and the money it takes to make a project like that a reality. And I just don't think it's possible in this day and age, in this environment, given that the redevelopment agencies have gone away, to really source funding that can make this happen. So I would urge you to support the staff recommendation and grant the approval, and I can promise you that we will deliver a very high quality product. It's a unique little land plan too. If you look at it, we found this in other communities. It really fosters a sense of community engagement. People get to know their neighbors because all of the front doors and front access to these homes is off these central landscape corridors. Are a little hard to see on this map, but so you don't drive into this community and see a long line of garages. we have these green belt areas that people will be walking past their neighbors to get to their front door, and I think it'll work really well. So thank you very much for hearing us out, and we do have a full team here. If you have any questions of a technical nature, we can address those.
Thank you. Any other speaker card?
Michael Cady.
Good evening, council members. Michael Cady with UCP Benchmark. I think I've had the opportunity to kind of walk through the site plan with everybody, so I won't be redundant again with everybody else. But I did want to kind of glom onto the thing that Victor mentioned about common ground. There's us as developers, the city, and the family as property owners that all have vested interest in what's happening here. And I think the project before you meets the needs of all those parties, and that's not an easy thing to do. So I do think that's important. In respect to Councilmember Luna's comments about parks, as Jim mentioned, and I think we discussed as we walked through the site plan, there are kind of central paseos that are green that the front door is open to. And also you can see in the southwest corner of the site, there's a lot there that has kind of 3 parking spots that we will and are more than happy to obligate ourselves to put some sort of community facility in there, some sort of park with a playground. We'll be more than happy to work with staff to determine exactly what that design is. We're amenable to a condition in that regards. And Billy will be really happy because that'll be a private park, which means the city will not have to maintain it. The HOA will maintain it. This is not a gated community, but it is all private streets and private common areas, so Billy, you won't have to pay for it. I know that's your big concern. So we're here to answer any questions regarding the site plan, but I greatly appreciate your effort and the time you spent working with us to hopefully bring this to fruition. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond.
Marty Richmond from Hollister. I appreciate Councilmember Gomez mentioning my name in relationship to housing, because I brought up a number of things, and I want to make my position clear on all developmental projects. There is no such thing as affordable housing in California. What they call affordable housing, they just take the cost difference between that house and the market cost, and they just lay it off on someone else. That's all. So in the case where they're very expensive homes next door, they lay it off on the expensive people. It's no more affordable. And I love quoting the following from the federal government, that the poverty rate in California is approximately 15%, because the poverty rate does not take into account the cost of housing. When you put the cost of housing into the equation, they've done the study at the Government Accounting Office, the poverty rate in California is actually over 25%. People in California simply cannot afford their first home. If you have a home that costs $465,000 or $500,000, you may be able to make the payment. But where in the world do you get the down payment? You know, typically these days they want 20%, even on low interest rates, and people can't afford it. So if the price points of these homes are somewhere in between what we'll call market rate and, quote, affordable multi-family housing, then I'm there to support it, because that's an area that's basically been abandoned by most counties, by most cities, and by most developers. And I don't consider developer being a dirty word. It's just something does. They're fine with me. But they abandon that price point. And the reason is, if they're at the lower price point for affordable housing, they're willing to get they often get the city, county government to help them beat somebody else on the head to pay for it, typically, or they have to put in $600,000 and $700,000 homes to pay for it. That's the way it works. You lay one off against the other. So this is an area where there is simply a shortage of housing options for the people who are looking for their first house, can afford a reasonably priced home if they could find one in California, but they can't find one. You have to give something up. As far as the small lots, first home we ever owned was a 0 lot line item, you know, where your neighbor's right next door, no space between, in Salinas. And here I was, well paid and retiring from the Army as an officer, and I still couldn't afford a house in California, so we moved into a 2-story 0 lot line. But eventually we were able to be successful and move up. So I think it's a good place for people to start, and owning your own home has a certain certain sense of belonging and a certain sense of community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards? Mr. Snow, you have your hand up. Can somebody get him a mic?
Council visitor. I live on the street, community gates. One thing that our neighbor have problems is that when they have gate community, if you have a problem with the neighbors or that music or anything like that, it's hard for officers to go to that. They have problems with that. And I am for affordable housing. I was here before Maria was here for the family on my behalf to speak. So I know everyone, if you can, talk to reads with them, right? And think us through and all that. And so if you guys you can do that. Cause then, like he said to you, Marty, he said, that you guys was the answer, and they know how for housing. There never will be no for housing because the houses are high, rent's high. People already paid their bills. You can pay a water bill, like I said before, and heating bill. So when you keep doing the project, create jobs and all that. But one thing that they're probably about is growth. I mean, we have growth, but we can handle traffic and all that. So you can spend all your money, all you want to do, survey traffic, we spend money for that, all kind of traffic. So one thing that you do is growth. So, but her, with Marie, so you guys okay this? Or the reason with her, around, playing the bit. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Any other? No? No other speakers? I'll close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the council?
Motion to adopt resolution 2015-189, 190, 191, and 192.
I'll second that. It's been moved and approved, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Can't be any opposed. So, motion passes. Thank you.
We were about to. Wow.
I'll pass the gavel back to the mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move forward with item
F1.
F1.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Some of the council members may remember every now and again, or every couple of years, one of these items come up. It's an issue that I do just to make sure that we don't put anybody in a bad situation. So this particular home is over at the Primavera subdivision. It has covenants and resale restrictions. The owner of the property, I believe, needs to move out, and I think they're heading east. So they provided the city of Hollister a notice of intent to sell their home. What we do when the agency receives that is we review it, we take a look at it, and we 9 times out of 10, well actually probably 10 times out of 10, we'll go ahead and exercise our option or assign the option to purchase the home. And essentially what that does is that it keeps that home affordable. It doesn't let it go to market rate. So what we do is in the meantime, we try to locate off our list home buyers that may be eligible to purchase the home. One of the qualifying factors here, though, for us is that once we assign, or once we once we exercise our option or give notice that we're going to exercise our option, we need to contractually close escrow within 90 days. We can't afford not to do that. So what I usually do is come to the council and have the council appropriate some funds that in the event that our first buyer falls out of escrow for any reason, maybe towards the end, and you folks know how easy that is sometimes at last minute, that we can step in. When I mean we, I mean the city can step in, close escrow on the house so it doesn't put any hardship on the current seller, and then we continue on with the process of selling the home to another affordable family. In all the years that we've been doing it this way, we've never had that happen. I always just kind of knock on wood and we make sure that we get the right people right away. But again, I think it's good business practice to maintain this sort of process to ensure that the house sells when it's supposed to sell and we don't put any undue hardship on the current seller. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, staff recommends adopting resolution 2015-194 appropriating the $275,000 to sell the home.
Okay, is there any questions from council?
Is that going to, that $275,000, is that the approximate range that you're going to sell the house?
Yes, yes, with closing costs, and we usually also charge, or we also pay a fee to a real estate agent for the drafting of the transaction documents, and so we use an agent to help us go through that process.
Are there any other questions? And how do we, the new owners, just so I'm clear, they buy and they're under the same restrictions?
Yes, then we re-record the resale restrictions with the new start date, and then they last for 33 years as well.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any speaker cards?
Keith Snow.
Mr. Snow?
Read the card where I put down.
The question on the back of the card is, what are they going to do with the house?
What you put down. Maybe at the city, if you guys buy the house, if we can make into like a thing, like a power women's shelter for the city, power women's shelter, or anything like for the community. So they can spend money, help a person, right? Maybe create an idea for power women's shelter with Sierra County relations, right? And or they already have one, they don't. Maybe for like that. That's the kind of idea. I was wondering you got the council. So maybe you can do something like that. If you buy this house, kind of idea to help a person, people friendly and all that, business friendly. But that's the kind of idea. I mean, I have my idea to the council. That means that you guys. But I'm for what you guys do to help a person. That's good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other speakers?
No, sir.
No speakers? Okay. Is there a motion from council?
I'll make the motion that we approve resolution 2015-194.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, 5-0 vote. Move forward to item G1, report from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Luna?
I don't have a report.
Councilmember Friend?
No, I had no committee meeting.
Councilmember Gomez?
Are you sure you want to ask me that question?
I think you have quite a bit to talk about today.
Yeah, so unfortunately I misplaced my agenda stuff from COG, but I will talk about a couple of things that I couldn't forget about. Number one, our last agenda item on the regular agenda for COG was regarding an MOU with VTA regarding the mobility partnership. And unfortunately from the city of, obviously the city of Hollister and the mayor has been vocal on this, and so have I at COG and in other venues as well on the importance of Highway 25 and the widening thereof. For folks that are not totally familiar, for years, and maybe Mary could clarify, I don't know how many years it's been, but it's been the desire of the city of Gilroy to find a new location for the interchange of 152 and Highway 101. And that new interchange will be it's proposed to be the current alignment of, intersection of interchange of 25 and 101. So Highway 152, somewhere up near the Santa Clara County, San Benito County line, north of Fraser Lake, will cut through the northern portion of the county and connect to Highway 25 near the railroad tracks at the San Benito County, Santa Clara County line. At that point, it becomes Highway 25 ends and 152 continues to where currently the interchange is to 25 and 101. And the Mobility Partnership, which is the name of this working group, and it involves multiple agencies, including San Benito County COG, Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, and representation from both boards. What the mayor and I were, and I hope you're okay with me saying this, Mayor Velasquez, but what the mayor and I were disappointed in was the chairman's appointment of himself to the Mobility Partnership on COG, and then allowing the county to make another appointment. So the county Board of Supervisors will have 2 representatives. The City of Hollister will have a total of 0. So we, Chairman Munzer, the mayor and I vocalized our position to him at the meeting before the vote took place, and neither Chairman Munzer, Director Botello, or Director Bach from San Juan Bautista took our opinion into account. So now the City of Hollister has no representation on the Mobility Partnership. Unfortunately, I think we all understand how big of an impact that's going to have on our commuters, which, as stated earlier, is quite a bit of our City of Hollister population. So my desire, and I will be going before the VTA board on October 1st to address this to them directly. I have set up a meeting with VTA Chairman Woodward as well to discuss this with them, and we're hoping that some changes could be made to the agreement to allow the City of Hollister to have 1 representative to speak on behalf of the city at the mayor's discretion. So I would like to request that a letter be put together and to request that the Valley Transportation Authority consider a representative of the City of Hollister City Council to be involved in the Mobility Partnership. So I would, if that's possible, I'd like to put in that request now. And we did have further discussions on the widening of Highway 25. We do have some updates. Obviously, the mayor and I would like to see things move a little bit faster, and so we are disappointed with the snail's pace that's taking place. We understand that there are deadlines that need to be met and things that need to happen, and we're not as patient as others on the board, maybe, but I still think that the widening of Highway 25 is important. In the discussion regarding ATCOG, in that discussion regarding a possible special transportation sales tax, unfortunately, even after the surveys were received, and a majority of those that were surveyed concluded that pavement maintenance and the widening of Highway 25 was very important to them. Unfortunately, we still heard from 2 of the San Juan Bautista representatives, one of them Supervisor Botello and the other one Councilmember Bach from the city of San Juan Bautista, didn't really seem to care or take into account that a majority, a supermajority and more of those that were surveyed believe that the widening of Highway 25 is a priority for our county, and have pretty much discarded that what we consider to be valuable information. So, I hope that we can move forward in addressing both of those issues. We do our best, obviously, to represent the city of Hollister at COG. I have disappointed in the direction that we've been going, but it's a democratic government, right? And, everybody has their own ways of and desires on how they're voting, but I hope that we can move forward with some type of consensus. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Council
question
member.
on the report. I just have a question to Victor. And maybe it's to Mary, I guess. We have the population, the largest number of population. Do we also have the largest funding of COG? How does that go? And is there a way for us to stop that funding and just say we don't want to be part of COG? Is that legal? I mean, maybe we ought to do it. Obviously, the county wants to do it on their own. Maybe we should do it on our own. Maybe we should just do away with our participation in COG and do our own.
Thank you.
Take care of our own streets. I don't know if that's possible.
Well, I would, what I would say, let's allow Councilmember Clower to talk about his committee, and then we could kind of go over this. I still have a few things I'd like to say on this. Councilmember Clower?
Well, I don't have any committee meetings as usual, but I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like we're going to be discussing something that's not on the agenda.
Right.
And maybe put it on for Tuesday, and we can scream and yell about as much as we want.
So I wanted to expand on our Councilmember Gomez's and myself, our COG committee meeting. We were obviously very disappointed in the direction that COG took on it. This is a very important matter. The city does represent 2/3 of the population. We've been talking about the widening of Highway 25 for many years, and to date it hasn't been done. This is a critical part of that widening. Otherwise, what's going to happen is we can widen it to the county line and then it stops again. So it doesn't do as much good to do the widening without the partnership from Santa Clara. I think Councilmember Gomez is right. If we can find a way to have somebody represent the city at those meetings, it'd be incredibly important. I think we do need to have a conversation about our role at COG to make sure we do represent 2/3 of the population, and at the present time we are not having that. We're not able to represent the city of Hollister in a way that can get the job done. Growth is happening throughout the county, and it's affecting the city. It's important for us to have a better answer than we'll widen Highway 25 in 20 or 30 years. It's just not acceptable any longer. So I would like to have something or a better understanding of our role in COG, so we're clear as far as the legalities, if that is something where we need to revisit and maybe take our own direction on that in the future. That is the only committee meeting I had this month. And Mr. Richmond, I think you want to make a comment.
No, because I don't want to bring up something that's not on the agenda, but I just want to say is whatever meeting you have this discussion about, I think it would be important to, when you do agendize it, to make sure that the community is well educated on the situation concerning who does the funding, who's providing the funding, how that funding is provided, and how much of it's based on population, how much of it's based on sales taxes, and the term gerrymander and the term Voting Rights Act and equal and fair representation and what they mean. And so I hope you will prepare the ground when you have this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Snow, did you have a comment?
they want to communicate with you guys, but the city, like what's it, they just said that you guys should break off, where, and if you guys not, close guys out. It's called communication. What is pictures in District 10, you know, the councilman over there. So you pay close the sun care. So if you guys see, if they're not communicating with you guys or cooperate, then you guys shouldn't even find nothing anymore. If you guys are 2 doors, like I said, we should do a little better job. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Move forward with item G2, informational reports from council. Councilmember Luna?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I participated in the September 13th Mexican Independence Parade. Very nice, and quite a few people, a lot of young people participated in that. It was good to see all the people out there supporting it. Also on September the 18th and 19th, I had the opportunity to chaperone 6-7 high school students and 3 university students to visit McFarland High School as an invitation from Counselor Daniel Diaz, who actually was one of the star runners in the movie McFarland. They're very interested in forming a partnership with San Benito High School and the students, and I was amazed at how that community came together to provide the lunch for the students there on Friday. It was a business community that was there with our booth for lunch for the students. Although, you know, of course, the students, I think there was 800 students in that school, which was many years ago as what was the school population when I attended Hollister High. But anyway, it was quite an experience. And their their student do participate in government. And I think that was alone just very interesting to see such a small school. But I did want to report on that because I thought it was very important that our kids in San Benito High School had the opportunity to visit that school and learn so much from the counselor, Mr. Diaz, who said he would be willing to come to Hollister anytime. So that was my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend?
Yeah, I do have one item I want to report on that kind of tails on what Mickey was bringing up. I was assigned a task of putting together a youth task force for the city council, and there will be a resolution probably by the end of the week, a draft resolution in your mailboxes, and I would appreciate you to get back to me with any input you have on it, any changes you would like to see in it, or any discussions you want to have about it. And then once we get the resolution done, then we can sit down and put together our first group of people and start writing writing their own charter and whatnot. But first of all, we got to get the resolution to adapt them. And what it's going to look like basically is about a 7-member group that we're going to gather from 14 to 18-year-old people for 2 years. I haven't talked to the school district yet. I hope to get them on board to give those kids credit in their government classes so that they can receive something for participating. And then we'll have to decide on where and when we're going to have the meeting. And there's some discussion on the meeting times. Obviously, if we have them at 7 o'clock, that's going to include parents having to transport 12 and 14-year-old students to the meeting, and we got to. So I'm hoping to get that group together and let them decide on what's the best time to have the meeting and where to have the meeting. And I'm thinking not in the council chambers. We'll probably have it somewhere else. And then the mayor is obviously going to have to appoint somebody as from the council to be the liaison between the group and the council. So, but I just wanted to inform you that resolution, or the draft resolution, will be in your mailboxes probably by the end of the week or so. so we can adopt it. We'd like to get this all rocking and rolling, so the 1st of January, when school comes back in, they should be ready to go. That's it.
Good work. Councilmember Gomez.
I don't have anything to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Clower.
Okay, as usual, I'm all over the board. So, number one, I got another call about continued thefts at Advantage Trust, which is just across the river on 4th Street. I always like to say that as a council, as a city, we're business friendly. One of our businesses, not necessarily in the city limits, but nearby, continues to have an issue with theft. What do we do about that? I'm not sure yet, but it's hard to stand idly by while it continues to happen. And we've been notified of it, so we're kind of all on notice that it's happening. Number two, library. Number three, San Benito Street extension where it meets Promise. I believe the city owns a piece of land there on the corner where the road used to be. We have a weed problem right there, and it's kind of a danger for anybody coming out of the new Homestead subdivision on Promise. If you're trying to turn left or right, if you're looking left, you can't see anything because of the weeds. That's something that I'd like to have looked at, just because it's kind of a matter of time before someone pulls out and something happens. Another item, I went to the Hazel Hawkins Hospital Foundation Donor Appreciation meeting yesterday at the hospital, and they had these interpreter machines, which are really cool. So they have these machines that they bring into the rooms, and there's like 15 different languages, and you get on Skype with somebody who can interpret in that language. So it kind of really opens up the healthcare aspect for that. And that was really neat to see here, because we do have a lot of people who don't speak English who do need healthcare. And I believe out of all the people who used it, there was 87% was for Spanish, but there was still another 13% for a bunch of other different languages. So it's not just Spanish only. Another thing, football's out. The high school football team's out to a great start. So if you can, get out there and support them and all the other high school teams that are playing during the fall. I think the chief will probably touch on this, but the fair is starting. I think it's Friday is the first couple events. So that'll be really cool for everybody to get out there and support the local 4-H's and just have a good time at the fair.
Thank you. A few things. As far as the trust company, the city manager and myself did meet with the trust company to discuss the issue, the ongoing issue there, and recommended a few different ways to attack that problem. And the police department and the sheriff's department have been involved in that. So there's an effort, and I think hopefully we get some results off of that. I wanted to recognize Al Castaneda. He had his birthday party, the 70th birthday party and retirement party. He's the owner of Doña Esther's, and he's ready to retire. Great guy, great businessman, very generous to the public over the years. Big part of our community, and I wanted to say congratulations to him. And hopefully in the future meetings here, we can have a recognition for him also. That's the only report I have. City manager.
Nothing to report this evening.
Okay. City attorney.
Nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Chief.
Yeah, as Councilman Clower intimated, this week is the start of the fair for us. The actual start of the fair is October 1st to the 4th, but this Friday is the stock horse show at Bellotto in the evening. It'll be stock horse and cutting. Saturday, it's Junior Rodeo. I'll actually be announcing that event until 3 p.m. And there's several other events that are FFA and 4-H events, both Sunday and Monday as well. So should be a great event this year, and a lot of kids are showing this year. A huge amount of animals this year at the fair. And on the 10th, just a reminder, the 10th of October, Red Ribbon 5K, downtown Hollister, 8:30 a.m. at 4th and San Diego Street. That's it.
Thank you. City clerk. Thank you. H, I, J, and K, there is no business.
Move for adjournment.
There's a motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, 5-0 vote. Thank you very much, everyone.
It's like, you got
Maybe a claim against
Yeah, it's probably.
Oh, it is the claim.